Lavrentiy Beria was one of the most terrifying figures of the Stalinist era, a man whose name evoked dread across the Soviet Union. As head of the NKVD, the Soviet secret police, Beria orchestrated mass purges, oversaw the Gulag system, and supervised Soviet atomic espionage. But following Stalin's death in March 1953, Beria himself became a victim of the very terror machine he once commanded. In a stunning reversal of fortune, he was later arrested, tried in secret, and executed before the year's end. His downfall was as swift and as brutal as the regime he once helped enforce. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Born in 1899 in Merk-Huli, a village in the Russian-ruled region of Abkhazia in Georgia, Lavrentiy Beria came from modest beginnings. He studied engineering but soon found his true calling in the Soviet secret security services. He joined the Cheka, the precursor to the NKVD, and rapidly ascended the ranks thanks to his loyalty, cunning and ruthlessness. In the 1930s, Beria became head of the Georgian NKVD and developed a close personal relationship with fellow Georgian Joseph Stalin. This proved invaluable. Beria's management of purges in the Caucasus impressed Stalin, and in 1938 he was appointed deputy head of the NKVD, soon replacing Nikolai Yezhov, who was purged and executed, becoming the chief. Under Beria's direction, the NKVD played a central role in Stalin's Great Terror. He oversaw the arrests, torture and execution of thousands. Beria also played a key role in orchestrating the Katyn massacre in 1940, in which over 22,000 Polish officers and intelligentsia were executed by Soviet forces. His tenure was marked by deep paranoia, state-sanctioned murder and personal cruelty. Many accounts suggest Beria was a sexual predator who used his power to abduct and assault young women. Despite this, Beria remained indispensable to Stalin. He was instrumental in the Soviet atomic bomb project, personally overseeing espionage operations that infiltrated the American Manhattan Project. As deputy premier, Beria had immense power, combining control over internal security, intelligence and key industrial sectors. Stalin's death on March 5, 1953, marked the beginning of Beria's downfall. A power vacuum immediately formed, and Beria, being one of the most powerful and feared men in the country, moved quickly to consolidate his position. He became the first deputy prime minister and retained control over the security services. For a time it seemed that he might become Stalin's successor. He appeared to pivot towards reform, proposing the release of political prisoners and even discussing the reunification of Germany with Western leaders. However, many within the Soviet leadership viewed Beria's reformist moves as cynical and dangerous. They feared he was using liberalization as a cover to seize total power. Chief amongst his rivals were Georgy Malenkov, who initially emerged as Stalin's successor, and Nikita Khrushchev, who was maneuvering for influence behind the scenes. Both men viewed Beria as a threat to their survival. His control over the security apparatus made him virtually untouchable, unless that power could be taken away first. A secret coalition formed within the Politburo to eliminate Beria. Led by Khrushchev, Malenkov and Marshal Georgy Zhukov, the hero of World War II, the plot required careful coordination and military support. Beria, famously suspicious and always surrounded by guards, could not simply be dismissed. He had to be taken by force. On June 26, 1953, during a presidium meeting in the Kremlin, the trap was sprung. Khrushchev and Malenkov accused Beria of treason and abuse of power. Beria, shocked, reportedly laughed it off, believing it to be a prank, but within minutes armed officers, under the command of General Kirill Moskalenko and Marshal Zhukov, stormed the room. Beria was arrested on the spot. According to some accounts, Beria pleaded for his life, insisting the accusations were false. He was immediately taken into military custody and transported to a secure prison. His own security forces had been carefully neutralized in the hours before the meeting. Beria was held in isolation for months. He was interrogated by a special commission under the Ministry of Defence. For a man who presided over countless show trials and secret executions, there would be no public proceedings, no opportunity to appeal. His trial, held in December 1953 before a special session of the Supreme Court of the USSR, was conducted in total secrecy. A military tribunal chaired by Marshal Ivan Konev presided. Beria faced numerous charges, including treason, terrorism, abuse of power, sexual assault, and collaborating with foreign intelligence services. Some of the charges were legitimate, based on Beria's record of terror and repression. Others were fabricated or exaggerated to ensure a conviction. Beria's attempts to defend himself were ignored. He was not allowed legal representation, and the outcome of the trial had already been decided. According to testimony from the time, he sobbed during the proceedings, begged for mercy, and insisted he had always been loyal to the Communist Party and Stalin, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. On December 23, 1953, Lavrentiy Beria was executed by a firing squad, or more probably a sole executioner. The execution took place allegedly at a military facility in Moscow, reportedly in the basement of the Ministry of Defence. Lavrentiy Beria, once the most feared man in the Soviet Union, was dragged from his cell and was shot without ceremony. He was 54 years old. There are varying accounts of his final moments. According to one version, Beria collapsed to the floor screaming and had to be forcibly taken to the execution chamber. Another source claims he cried and wet himself as the guards approached. General Pavel Batitsky, who led the execution squad, later confirmed that he had personally shot Beria in the forehead. Lavrentiy Beria's body was buried in an unmarked grave at the Donskoy Monastery Cemetery in Moscow, a location used for many political executions. His name was erased from official records and Soviet history books for decades. Most of his co-conspirators and top deputies were also executed or imprisoned. Beria's fall marked the beginning of a shift in Soviet politics. The terror state that Stalin had built and Beria had maintained began to recede. Within 3 years, Khrushchev would denounce Stalin's crimes in his famous secret speech of 1956 and initiate a limited process of de-Stalinization. The security apparatus was restructured to prevent any single man from acquiring the kind of power Beria had wielded. The KGB, created in 1954, operated under stricter party control. Publicly, the Soviet government portrayed Beria as a traitor, a deviant, and a tyrant. Many of his crimes were real. His responsibility for the purges, the Katyn massacre, and his personal depravity were difficult to ignore, but in truth Beria had done little that Stalin had not ordered or sanctioned. His execution was as much about politics and survival as it was about justice. For decades, Beria remained a symbol of Stalinist terror. His name was synonymous with secret arrests, torture chambers, and midnight executions. Even in a post-Soviet Russia, he is remembered as one of the darkest figures of the 20th century. The execution of Lavrentiy Beria in December 1953 was one of the most dramatic purges of the post-Stalin era. A man who had built his power through fear and murder was ultimately destroyed by the very system he once commanded. His death closed a chapter of Soviet history defined by unchecked brutality and opened the way for a partial thaw in Soviet repression. But for his countless victims, the terror Beria unleashed left scars that would last for generations. In the end, the execution of Stalin's chief enforcer served as both a political necessity and a grim symbol of the fate that can await even the most powerful within a totalitarian regime. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.